Hey, what's up everybody? This is Recalibration, and today I want to go over all the new information and patch notes we got from the State of the Game on April 24th. Now the first thing is that the apparel event is ending. After tomorrow's maintenance, which is the 25th of April, players will no longer be able to get invasion apparel keys from projects or drops. And I'm pretty sure this means you're still able to buy them with real world money and buy the keys from that and still open them. The Black Tusk uniform can no longer be obtained after May 2nd. And I'm thinking this is also when you can't get any more keys. I'm not exactly what time date they're going by this now, because before they said even after you weren't able to get apparel keys from projects or drops, you'd still be able to buy them. Then a time after that, you'd still be able to open the keys you have. Then at some date, you wouldn't even be able to open keys. The chests and all the keys would just be gone. Now, after that, we have the PTS Phase 2 update. So basically, this is the second phase of the PTS for the title update 3. And the first thing is the gear score drop changes. They changed the way the gear score of endgame items is calculated. Before you get items that are lower than your current gear score, both the new system, you get items that are at or above your current average gear score and higher. So basically, whatever your average gear score is, you're going to get items at that or higher. They also rebalance how you acquire these items and the speed of it. So if you have a character below 500, test it on the PTS. I don't know what this means. I'm assuming this means that they're changing the rate at which you get 500 gear score items before you are at an average of 500 gear score. So right now it would basically just be caches until you're at a certain point to get the 500 gear score item, and they're changing, I guess, how you can get 500 gear score items before that point. Once you hit the 500 gear score, all the high ends you see will be 500 gear score, and all the purples will be 490, which is actually probably higher than the average of high ends we have right now. So this is a massive change and a really good change, because right now the main way you get 500 gear score items is from the Dark Zone or just the PvE level of caches, which are guaranteed 500s. But other than that, it was a pretty low chance to get a 500 gear score item. And this is going to be a massive change for the game overall. But specifically for weapons, this is going to be huge. Because if you don't know, weapons actually can go higher damage with higher gear score. Armor pieces in like the world tier 4 to 5 range only pretty much increased their armor value going from that gear score. So the stats weren't affected at all besides the armor, so it wasn't as that big of a deal. But weapons would actually go higher just base damage, which is a massive deal, probably one of the biggest stats in the game. And this is a really big change, especially for people trying to min-max, because how it is right now, you're going to be going through thousands of items just to get a piece that would possibly be a perfect piece and a gear score 500 to get the perfect armor on it as well. So it is a really good change and something that is sorely needed. So then the recalibration changes. Players have noticed that in some cases when you move one attribute from one item to another, that the attribute has a lower value after the process is done. That is specifically the case when you move attributes between items that have different qualities. The reason that this is, for each quality has a different stat budget, and when you move stats between items, this budget can be reached, and that is why the final number could be lower. So basically, between different items and stat values, if an item has 4 stats, all the stats are going to be much lower. So say if you try to roll a stat from a piece that has 2 stat pieces to one that has 4, all those 4 are going to overall be much lower, so it's going to hit a cap really quickly. That has been changed. Now each item has a 100 calibration score, so 0 to 100, and the chance of you hitting the budget cap is a lot lower. Basically, when you move an attribute with a new recalibration, you retain what you see in the source item. So now, if you're doing that same thing I just said, you're rolling a high roll on a piece of gear that had 2 stats on it to a piece of gear that had 4 stats on it, and all the 4 stats are much lower. Before, the stat you're rolling is going to be capped really quickly and not be much of an increase. Now the stat will be a much higher roll, so the cap will be much higher. If you even hit the cap, a lot of the time you're not even going to hit a cap anymore, and you'll just get that stat. This Also means that you can't recalibrate an item to go above gear score 500. So basically now your gear score on the item isn't going to be rising when you recalibrate that item. But what I noticed with pictures of the PTS, because my character isn't on the PTS, that the armor will still increase to what it would before. So say if you rolled a 500 piece to a 515 piece, you would actually get a armor increase to go with the increased gear score. Now the gear score won't go up, but the armor will still go up as your recalibration score goes up. So you're not losing anything. They're basically just removing the ability to increase your gear score on items above 500. On PTS, you can get crafting and material caches that should help you test out the new calibration system. So basically, you'll be able to buy like caches with crafting materials on the PTS to test this all out. High-end versus blue mods. In general, the better quality mods have more power and also more stats, but the mentioned stat budget above is also more spread out. In general, players should go for higher end mods and then enhance them with maybe purple mods that provide very specific stats. The reason why blue and purple mods have higher numbers than high end is the lower quality items invest their entire budget into one stat, when the high ends distribute the budget over 3 stats. Blue and purple mods will now also be craftable, but blue and purple mods will not be craftable at gear score 500. So basically, they're talking about how the like high-end mods have more different stats on them, and lower mods, specifically like blue mods, have one stat that's really high. And they're actually buffing basically these lower end mods, because you'll be able to craft blue and purple mods, just not at 500 gear score like high end mods will be. But this, I still don't think they understand why people are farming these low level mods. I even did a video on this, how you can go farm, blue mods to get insane just damage increases, because you're going to be farming hundreds to thousands of high-end mobs to get a high damage roll with something you're going to use. The problem with having a high mod that overall has a higher stat budget but has 3 random stats on it is that not only are you going to have to farm mods that have to compete with weapon and gear drops, which mods are pretty much at least, armor mods are probably one of the least dropped items in the game. You not only have to, fight against that lower chance of getting the items, you have to fight against 3 randomized stats on one piece, instead of one piece that will roll slightly overall less stats, but 1 stat. So if you get an assault rifle damage roll, you now have a very high assault rifle damage roll. But if you get a high-end piece, yeah, you could get a high-end piece with a few % more assault rifle damage roll, but that's going to be one of the rarest things in the game, not to mention that it has 2 other stats that it can randomly share stat budget with. So you could, instead of coming out with, say, a blue mod with 5% assault rifle damage, compared to a high-end mod, you might get, 7% overall stats, but maybe you get SMG, LMG, and assault rifle damage on it for no reason, because you can only use 1 gun at a time. So realistically, you just got, 3% assault rifle damage or something instead of 5. So I don't think they actually understand why people are farming these level mods. Instead, they're saying, oh yeah, there's a possibility that you could get this ultra rare god tier mod after 1,000 mod drops, or you could go, farm low level blue mods, and, out of 10 drops, you're going to get 1 that has the stat you actually want on it. So you'll be able to craft these now, which is good. Everyone's just going to craft the blue mods and get all the damage on the blue mods, and then just wait over time, if they play the game long enough, to get the god roll high-end mods, if they ever even get them. So then we have a new vendor being added. Basically, you can buy blueprints from whatever her name is, the crafting NPC. She has been promoted to a vendor where you can buy these blueprints. So basically, the lady that stands there and constantly talks to you at the crafting station now sells blueprints. The blueprints from other vendors, as well as a weekly vendor, has been moved to her. So basically, all the random blueprints you can get from other vendors, including like exotic blueprints and stuff like that, have all been moved to her. So she deals with all of the blueprints in the game, and they've all been removed from other vendors and stuff like that, which is pretty nice. So you don't have to run around to, 3 areas to get different blueprints to buy. You can just get it from her. Blueprints, so new blueprint sources. Blueprints have been assigned to specific sources. So when you no longer get blueprints for finishing a control point, you have all the blueprints that are assigned to that source. There are 3 main blueprint sources in the game, in the live game. So before this, control points, vendors, and projects. To improve that experience, there will now be 2 new weekly blueprint projects, 1 per settlement. So in total, you can earn 3 blueprints per week from those. There's also a new daily project in the base of operations where you can donate crafting materials, and then you can get a blueprint from that. You can donate to get a blueprint from that. So 3 weeklies and 1 daily. That'll clearly be every day. And I don't exactly know if they're removing. I think this means that they're keeping all of the other ways you can get blueprints, but then they're also going to have the 3 weekly ones and the 1 daily one. But I'm not exactly certain if they're changing anything else. And just meaning that the 3 weeklies and the daily will be able to get you any blueprints you can't get from all the other sources. I'm not exactly certain on that because they weren't exactly clear on that. Skill mods, new auxiliary battery mods. So basically a new type of mod. High-end skill mods have a high skill power requirement, but you can also fall back to lower quality skill mods that have a lower skill power requirement. When you are not going specifically for a skill power build, they are introducing a new auxiliary battery mod for specific skills. Turret auxiliary battle, for example. So basically it would be a mod for a specific skill, which I don't know why they actually had to kind of specify that, because every other skill mod is for a specific skill. Auxiliary batteries can now be equipped in the skill mod slot, and they provide you with skill power for that specific skill, so only for that skill. This should allow you to get higher skill mods in the remaining slots of working. This way, you are sacrificing 1 mod slot for the battery, but you can get high-end mods working that you would not be able to otherwise. You can find auxiliary batteries as drops, or you can craft a random skill mod. You can get it from there. So basically what they're adding here is a mod, another type of a mod that you can get for a specific skill, like all the other skill mods, that only increases the skill power of that skill to be able to let you use a higher end skill mod for the other slot of that skill. I mean, okay, I guess if you're using a damage build, but I think this is kind of like, this would make much more sense if they actually, had any reason to go into skill power in the game whatsoever, and if there was actually builds that utilize these high skill mods, because you would still have to go only skill power to get a lot of the high-end mods working in the game. For whatever reason, they're still ridiculously high, and this is pretty much what this is pretty much going to do, because no one is using skill builds in this game. They're not useful in any capacity, in any form of play in this game. They are not good. No one is really using them if they're actually trying to kill anything. So pretty much what they're doing is, instead of actually redoing that system, they're pretty much just saying, okay, half the mod slots on your skills are now going to be useless, which all the mod slots are currently useless. You can now farm a bunch more to make half your ability mod slots useless, so you can now use 1 mod. It's kind of really convoluted and stupid. They're basically just putting a band-aid on a really broken and useless system and saying, well, now you at least have 1 mod you can put into this item. And that's even if these auxiliary batteries give you enough skill power for one of these things to be used. This also kind of doesn't make sense. If skill builds were useful, most likely people would still just use one of these batteries if they actually let you use a high-end mod with almost no skill power baseline. if one of these batteries lets you use a high-end mod for your other slot, most likely skill builds would still just use this. It's kind of, they legitimately should have just removed the skill power from abilities and said, okay, now you have one mod slot and you can just put whatever in it that you want. That would have been a better system. Pretty much everybody probably would have agreed with that more than this. It doesn't really make sense why they would add this. Gear score at 515 drops. Gear score at 515 drops will not be exclusive to the Dark Zone. There will be other sources to get them. More details will follow. So after they said this, I actually saw a bunch of people in the live stream chat saying that a lot of people, they don't know why people were saying that these were only exclusive. That's because they legitimately said in the Dark Zone you will now be able to get gear score of 515 pieces. That's all they said. That's legitimately saying these are exclusive to the Dark Zone. You telling us that, oh, Dark Zone will have 515 pieces now, and not saying anything else is the same thing as saying the Dark Zone will be the only place to get these. And we know that the raid will be getting, we think, higher gear score drops than 515. So we don't know if they're saying, oh yes, and also the raid will get these. What I'm assuming is heroic stuff, just anything heroic, and the raid will be able to get 515 plus as well. And if that's the case, basically the Dark Zone will still be the only place you go farm these. No one's going to farm heroic stuff, heroic anything to get 515 drops if they can get it from the Dark Zones. The Dark Zones right now are the best place to farm high-end pieces, high-end just overall quantity of gear. There's no way people are going to go farm super high-end PvE stuff. Heroic or challenging people will probably farm, but if it's just heroic in the raid, people are still going to only have to farm these in the Dark Zone because those won't be even close to competitive with farming from this. So I'm hoping these other sources will actually be stuff that's equivalent to the ridiculous quantity of gear and how quick you can get gear in the Dark Zone. More ammo drops. It's been reported that ammo is a problem in longer fights. To counter that, you will get more ammo drops from enemies when you're low on ammo. I mean, that's definitely a needed fix, especially, in like challenging heroic, because you can easily run out of ammo with like ARs and SMGs and stuff like that. More basic crafting materials. You can now carry 600 basic crafting materials, the gray ones. For whatever reason, they didn't feel like increasing all of the crafting materials to 600, which 600 is still ridiculously low for any of the crafting materials, especially how useless crafting anything as currently is. There just shouldn't be a cap on any crafting materials. It makes exactly no sense. It's legitimately the only thing I could actually think of for having a craft or having a cap on crafting materials, especially one that's not like 5,000 or something like that, is legitimately just to increase playtime. Because unless you are legitimately every couple hours going and spending as many crafting materials, crafting random things, you will cap very quickly, and then you can go craft 4 items. The cap right now, you can craft like 4 items or something, and then you're out of materials. It makes exactly no sense. The whole crafting and material cap system in this game right now is an absolute useless and broken system. It completely needs redone. It does not serve any purpose right now. Absolutely none. Hardware gear set. This is the gear set craft. This is the gear set that you need to craft. As of now, the gear score range from 450 to 500. That has been increased to 480 to 500. So the chance you get a gear score 500 gear set has been increased. This still doesn't even mention the fact that every gear set is useless. No one uses them because they just have not even slightly the amount of power that just high ends have. So, okay, no one's still going to go farm this to try to get 500 gear score item when they're all still useless at gear score 500. This especially doesn't make any sense considering I think this is considered the weakest gear set I would probably consider it the weakest gear set out of the three, and you have to farm for a ridiculous amount of time to craft these that still aren't going to be guaranteed 500s, even if you hit an average of 500 gear score. So everything else you're getting is going to be 500, just not the hardest and least useful gear set. That some of the, like half these changes are legitimately just saying, oh yeah, this small little thing is going to change, except this piece is still completely useless, so this really isn't a change that anybody cares about. Then there's long loading times, which is a bug that they hopefully should be fixing soon. That is all the patch notes. As you could probably hear, a lot of these really aren't that great of changes, because half of them are just band-aid fixes or fixes that are completely useless because they're doing some small change to something that is still going to overall be useless. So a lot of these changes are just kind of like, oh yeah, they changed this to, you know, possibly be a higher gear score piece to something that's completely useless. So hopefully they actually fix a lot more stuff, especially since this is phase 2 of 3, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully they actually start to rework some of these systems that are absolutely useless right now. But anyways, that's the end of the patch notes. Subscribe if you want to see more Division 2 content. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you think about Division 2 as a whole, what you think about these patch notes, and thanks for watching.